That's my son.
What's his name?
Oscar Judah.
Oscar
Oscar Judah, yeah.
Right in there?
My son.
Yeah.
Here, maybe don't want to see pictures of babies.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised.
Just wanted to give you kind of a quick update of what Ju and we've been doing. Let you know, for those of you that don't know, my wife and I, we've been in São Paulo, Brazil for 8 years now. Up until this past year, we've been living in the second largest slum in Latin America. So, for those of you who remember, it's about 2 kilometers long, half a kilometer wide, and there's 144,000 people that live in that area. So it's people on top of people. Our purpose when we went down to Brazil was to partner with the local church and train up a team and start a ministry. We did that because that's what we've done over the last 8 years. We now have trained up 5 churches. Some of them are within that slum, but some of them are from other places that want to reach their neighborhoods, other slums, because there's over 600 slums in São Paulo. It's a city of 23 million people, so it goes on and on and on. So we've been able to work with about 5 churches. They've trained up team members, people within the church that have gone out and reaching their neighborhoods. And this past year, just to give you a little bit of history. So when we were here last year, we had the whole intention to go back to São Paulo and just pick up where we left off and keep doing the ministry that we're doing, which is child evangelism. We do a project out on the street. So we pick it could be, sometimes it's a soccer court, sometimes it's a street corner, sometimes it's the end of a dead-end street. We just block it off and we do a program with the kids. So we invite the kids to come out, sing songs, play some games, and then we preach the gospel. To be honest, I know nowadays they're getting a lot into everything's about relationship. I believe that's good. That's good. But everyone's called to a different thing. I really believe in the power of the gospel. Spoken, it still has power to change, and people need to hear it. And so you can do a lot of things, but if they don't hear the word, it's missing that one essential part of it. And then listen, I have seen children. You can tell, sometimes you try to think, well, when you talk to kids, you got to be, happy and make everything, light and fluffy. I don't believe that whatsoever. I believe you can tell the kids the truth, and the truth will always set people free. And so I told a story once, I don't know if I told it here, so if I told it, you tell me to stop, I can go to another story. There was once we were in Boston, I think. Yeah, it's a long time ago. And this was at another, not from when we went to Hillcrest, but from before. They gave us a group of kids. We went down to this church to do this program, like a daily vacation Bible school sort of thing. So they had a poor community nearby that they bring these kids to. 90% of these kids had never been in church. And so when we came there to do it, they started dividing up all the ages and all the team members in different age groups to take care of the kids. So they gave me and this other guy the 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. Now, I like kids, but the little whiny kids, I have a real problem with. And so when they gave them to us, they gave us the curriculum they gave us was the fruits of the Holy Spirit. Now I don't know, if I got somebody coming off the street that's never been in church, I'm not going to start with the fruits of the Spirit. And so they got it, and it was rough. And there's this one kid, I remember him still today, and his name was Daniel, 5 years old. But he was cried for his mom every day. And I can't take I can't take it. It just takes me, I'm just, whatever. So I put him so it was really irritating that whole week. And then we came down, finally at the last day we said, listen, we can't keep doing this. This is the fruits of the Spirit. We got kids that none of them have been to church before. So we threw out the curriculum, and we said, well, I'll just do something tomorrow. And so we came, and we brought the kids together, and I started telling them the truth, just the gospel truth. Listen, there are sin, things, bad things that we do, whether it may be a lie we tell our mother, or disobey, or we do something like that. When we do that, the Bible says there's a price to pay. We can't go to heaven. We have to go to hell. And if we die without taking care of that problem, we go to hell. Amen. Which is the truth. And some people think, well, I can't tell a kid that. I can't tell them that they're going to hell. But sometimes we need to know. And we need to know.
Sure.
And so we tell them the truth. But he says, God didn't want us to go to hell. So he gave one way out. He sent his son Jesus, who died and paid the price for us. So that if we believe in him, he makes us his friend, which we can now escape hell and go to heaven. That was it. Basic gospel truth.
That is it.
And then right at the end, we finished up and we were going, all the kids were going out because there was hot dogs and all that kind of stuff. This Daniel, you know what he was doing? In the corner crying. I said, Daniel, listen, your mother's going to be out there. Let's go and eat a hot dog. Let's go. And he wouldn't move. And to be honest, the Holy Spirit had to slap me upside the head and said, pay attention. Eat. And it really came on. I said, do you want to talk about what we talked about? You know, like this. I said, what happened? He says, I lied to my mom. I have very rarely seen conviction, but I saw it in a 5-year-old boy. And that little boy said, and I asked him, do you want to pray? And he said, yeah. I said, okay, you pray, I'll be with you. You know what this little boy, 5-year-old, did? He says, God, I'm sorry, I lied to my mom. And I want to be your friend like you want to be my friend. Salvation. Salvation. Simple. You don't have to give all the 5 points and all those things and all that sort of stuff. Conviction and commitment. That's the truth. That's what I believe the gospel is. And if we preach it, and we just tell people the truth, we don't try to water it down, we don't try to adapt it to our culture and to our society nowadays. If we can just tell the truth, people are dying for it. They're dying for it. And that's what our ministry is. We preach this, we do lots of relationship, we go and visit, listen. But I've learned, since being down in Brazil, my ministry changed a whole lot. I love the fact of being with the kids, spending time with them. We do all kinds of field trips and stuff like that. But I found now, since being in Brazil, that I can't do that anymore. It was a hard go of it to learn, but God changed my ministry. In the fact that as a Canadian, you are perceived totally different. The moment, just the fact that I'm blonde hair and blue-eyed and white, everybody knows I'm not from Brazil. And so there's an instant wall, instant barrier to me. And I remember once we were going in to visit a lady. I was with a Brazilian, and she knocked on the door. A lady came to the door and said, "Oh, hi," and then she started talking, and she said, "Oh, this is my friend Ben." "Oh, hello, how are you?" And then she said, "He's Canadian." And we said, "Wait, he's Canadian? Just wait. She ran inside, and I hear her inside calling her son, Thiago, come quick, come and see a Canadian." And what I was like a circus attraction. And you know, it was an extreme case, but that's generally how you're perceived. Because you'll never be one of them. And so I'd go knock on doors for a month and nobody would give me the time of day. But the moment I brought a lady that was from there along, door was open, we were in, we were able to pray, we were able to touch, it's everything. It makes all the difference. So what I've learned now is that my role is more to facilitate, help involve other people. Because the ones that are there reach the ones there better than I will. And so it's providing them the opportunity. And so we found that's why we've partnered with the church to be able to train up the church. And the fact that I'm Canadian has opened doors that would normally be closed to Brazilians. They say, "Oh, you're Canadian, come and preach. Yeah, we want to do a project with kids? Come on, you can do it with us." But if a Brazilian did that same thing, they wouldn't give them the time of day.
They would have too much opposition.
Yeah, exactly. So it works, it's a double-edged sword, it cuts both ways. And so I found that my role has changed. And now it was really difficult, but now I accept it because it's much better. And so we've partnered with the churches, and now our goal was really just pick up where we left off when we came back. But when we came back to Brazil, God took our heart right out of Brazil, right out of São Paulo. It's really hard to explain. And the only situation that happened that I can actually tell you how that happened was we were looking for a home. Because Ju was pregnant at the time. And so we decided, we've been living in the slum, and we decided at that point, once we have kids, we're going to leave the slum. Because living in the slum with kids is not a good place to raise kids. We've seen good parents, Christian moms and dads that have done their best with their kids, but because of the environment where they're growing up, they lost them to violence, they lost them to crime, they lost them to drugs and everything else. And so we decided, as what I've learned is that once I've had well, you know what, to be honest, it's the Christian faith. That once I give my life to Christ, I'm no longer mine. I don't get to do what I want to do. I have to do what the Lord sends me to do. And so we decided, well, now that I have a kid, I can't do what is good for me. I have to do what's good for him. So we decided that we were going to leave the slum. And so when we left the slum, we said, well, we want to still be around the area where we're working. So we went and looked, and some houses were too expensive, some were terrible, some didn't fit our needs, and all that kind of stuff. And we said, that was part of the process. And just the way this happened, if it happened differently, it wouldn't have been so bad. But just the way it happened, we found the perfect house. Great little spot. Had greenery, which as a Canadian was so nice. But actually, I could see a tree. Which was so nice. And so we found the perfect place, but the price was too high. So we said, oh, this place is great, but the price... And she stopped me there. Oh, just 2 weeks ago, the lady dropped the price to a couple hundred reais less, which put it right at our limit. So I thought, this was God, right?
Right, yeah.
But just the way God did it was really important. So we got really excited. Our heart got into it. And then it turned out, a couple weeks later, the lady decided not to rent to us, but to rent to her sister-in-law. And so, at that, and you know what? Just before we came to Canada this time, it's still up for rent. Never got rented out. So, it just, the way that it happened, it just got, if it had been no right from the beginning, we would have accepted and kept going. But it was a yes and then a no. And that just really took the straw that broke the camel's back. You know, I was having a real hard time with English phrases again. Because I usually when I was going to Brazil, I try to learn the phrases in Portuguese, because if you took the literal translation from English and put it into Portuguese, it doesn't mean anything. And so I learned the ones in Portuguese, now I've forgotten the ones in English. So it really it just took our heart right out of São Paulo. And we got to the point, both Ju and I got to the conclusion that God is leading us to leave São Paulo. So we said, yeah, okay God, we're willing to leave. But it's the first time in my life that I haven't already known where it was going. Do you know what I'm saying? Usually I know when my time is coming to an end, and there's already something, direction to go. This was the first time that God just said, nope, you just need to get to the point where you're ready to leave, and leave the rest to me. And so we said, yep, okay God, you want us to leave, so we'll leave. We're going to be parents, we don't want to make any major move. Being a parent is a big change. So we said, well, 1 year. We'll stay here 1 year, and we'll wait to hear from you to where we can go. If we don't hear anything within this year, then you're just saying we can go back to Canada and I can get a job and I'll work. And ministry is just life. There's nothing special about being a missionary. It's just the way you live your life. And so it doesn't matter if you go to another country or you work a regular job here, you're still a missionary just as much as anybody else. And so we said, that's what we'll do. And it was just a month later that we just happened to meet this lady from New York City, came down to Brazil and ended up staying with us. And they told us that, I don't know if you remember, that I was in New York there a long time ago, 15 years ago now. And they were from the same organization that I was with there, and she came down, met with us, she said, oh yeah, Metro is looking to start down in Brazil, and they want to start in Rio. And then over the week that she was with us, she asked us if we'd come and help her start up this sidewalk Sunday school in New York City. And so it was the first in Rio, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the ministry in New York City, in Rio, yeah. So we said, funny thing was Jew said, when we were coming to that conclusion that God was leading us, Jew said, we can go anywhere, we can go back to Canada. I'm scared of the cold, but I'll go. He said we can go to another country, we can go to another state, anything, except for
Rio.
Rio.
And then it was just a month later that they invited us to Rio. Don't ever say, I will never. Yeah. So I said, listen, I can't take my wife like that. I do love my wife, and she's in my family is just as important as anything else. And so I said, well, I'm not going to take Jew like that. If Jew's not willing to go, then we're not going. And so I prayed, I said, God, if you want us to go, you have to change Jew's heart. Because I can't take her like that. She has to go because she wants to go, because she feels like you're leading her to it. And so I just left it with God, and about 3 months later she said, yep, I'm willing to go. Which was, and you know, as a missionary, you sit there and you see lots of people that are in need, people that you know need Christ, and you're always trying to figure out, what do I do to get that person to want God or want to be changed, or how do you do that? And the more that I've done it, the more that I just realized the only one, there's no strategy, there's nothing. The only one that can turn a heart is Jesus Christ.
Amen.
It's the only way. You know, we sit there and try to figure out our kids or anything like that. How do I get my kid to love Jesus? You can't, there's nothing you can do. And the only thing, or maybe not the only thing, but the best thing we can do is intercede for them. Pray that Jesus Christ might change their heart. Because He's the only one that can. He really is the only one that can. And when I saw that Jew's heart was changed, that was a confirmation that this is what we were supposed to do. And so I say we're going. I'm still not there. The beginning was that they're going to send down a whole team. They're going to send down 4 people. So there was a Swiss, there was a Finnish. There we go. I say it in Portuguese. Finlandese. And then there was 2 Brazilians. So I thought, oh, this is going to be a whole lot easier. We're going to have a whole team. We're going to start, and that'll be a whole lot easier. Well, then it started. Well, no, these 3 people don't want to come yet. So now it's just one person, and what we thought was going to be is not what it's going to be. So sometimes we sit there and think, well, maybe we're not supposed to go. But I keep going back to the fact that God answered the prayer. So we're walking in that direction and just believing. It's that verse in the Bible where Jesus is walking on the water, coming to the boat, and then the people, the men in the boat, the disciples, look and cry out, "It's a ghost!" And Jesus says, "No, it's not. It's me. Don't be afraid." And then Peter says, "You remember what he says?" He says, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water. You see, Peter was in the boat and he saw something coming toward. There's a storm, so maybe, something appeared. It looks like Jesus. And he heard a voice, but there's wind and all that kind of stuff. And it sounds kind of like Jesus, but he wasn't sure that it was. And it maybe could have been some spirit and said, "Oh yeah, come on," to get him out of the boat and drown. But he heard what he thought was the voice of Jesus, and he took a chance. He practiced faith. Faith isn't staying in the boat. Faith isn't putting 1 foot out. Faith isn't even putting 2 feet out and holding on to the faith is letting go of it all.
Dive head on, let go.
That's right.
Say, dive head on, not to have any suspicions, because faith is all about putting trust in the Lord. and under having understanding of tremendous sacrifice, all those things. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, intricate 3D jigsaw puzzle. It's like a fine line. I'm sorry to interrupt. But I just had
No,
to
it's
say
okay,
that.
it's okay. It's that full faith where you just give it all up. We all say we have faith, but faith is not something
Faith
we
that works
say.
is dead.
Faith is not something we say, faith is something we do. And it's a whole lot harder to practice.
And action speaks louder than words.
So Peter didn't have, he wasn't 100% sure that was Jesus. He just had faith, that's the voice he's hearing. He took the chance, he took the step. And so I kind of think that's kind of what we're doing. We're just kind of taking a step and we're hoping that the ground, the water beneath us is going to firm up. So we decided that's where we're walking towards. But we'd ask you to keep us in prayer. The reason why Jew does not want to go to Rio. I know when you watch the Olympics and stuff, it's absolutely gorgeous city, absolutely gorgeous.
Caravan that gets bad. There's billions of diseases transmitted and partying.
It is.
And it's the crime. There's 1,000 different issues, but I can name what's wrong. The caravan, that big event, drugs, and people that their family are working full time. They can't even put one piece of cornbread or even a scrap of any kind of starch or any nutrients. The kids see these guys rolling around, and they it's not hard in those countries because they started prepping them at like 2.5 years old, 3 years old. They're in with the boys, and that's all they ever known because they. And then when they become preteen, that's their profound family. They will not. They'll take everything they learned to the grave, and they will give their lives up for them.
They have a real hard time in that
They
city.
find that's what it is about gangs and organizations. People abandon their families, or the families might abandon them. Gang lifestyle. I'll be the first to admit it. I miss it. I truly do. But I've had 6 years of peace and solitude.
There's it is. There's the whole thing, right? You sit there and you try to tell people that are involved in one sort of life, their whole lives, that there is something different and there's something better. But because they've never sampled it, because they've never been to it, because they've never felt it, they don't believe it. And so you have to go and you have to show them. And sometimes it takes a long time, but as soon as they can see something different than the life that they had, you can look and you can compare the two. And which one do you always take? We always take Christ. Always will. But the problem is you can't see it. All you have is an impression. You say, oh, this religion stuff. Oh, you have all this, it's just God stuff. It's a bunch of, science is the answer. Or at least here I have a sense of family, I have a sense of it. But you don't really realize until you actually make the change. You actually sample it. You find that this is always better. But it's that idea. It's always the fear of the unknown. You don't know. And so we have that, that's the challenge in the Christian faith, to try to show people that this is actually not what they think it is. Because when you actually get into it, it's totally different than what they thought it was. It's so much better. And so as we were getting ready to go to Rio, this was the problem with Jew. She said she would not even go to visit. Of all the stuff that you hear in Brazil, it's absolutely gorgeous, absolutely beautiful Rio, but it is the worst city in all of Brazil. What you see on TV, what you see on the Olympics, they show you what's good. They don't show you the other side of it.
It's propaganda.
Absolutely. So what they do is, in São Paulo, just to give you an overview of what Rio is like. São Paulo is a huge city. It's far bigger than Rio. Rio has 4 million. São Paulo is 23 million. But São Paulo is different in the fact that in Brazil there are 3 organized crime. There's PCC, the Red Command, and then there's a third one. I can't remember what the name of the third one is, but they're all spread out and they usually own their own territories. São Paulo, in general, is run by the PCC. That's the main criminal organization in São Paulo. Rio is different in the fact that it's not just the PCC, but the Red Command, and they're both equal. So you always have turf wars. You have one person going in to get more territory for drug dealing. And so this is where they have these wars that break out. And so in Rio, as you know, is, you know, beautiful beachside cities. They have the Copacabana and the Ipanema beaches, and, you know, absolutely gorgeous, and all the flat land, these massive tourist buildings, resorts, all that kind of stuff. All that flat land is all owned by people that have money. So they build it up and they invest the money, and it's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. But within the city, all these flat places, there's interspaced these massive, these really steep hills. Right in the middle, you're going flat, and then just a big hill right in the middle of it, and then goes flat around it, and then it keeps going like that. Other places there's hills over. Hills aren't very conducive to building, so they never were owned by, they were never developed. So what would happen is the poor, you know, you'd always have, everybody still, there are a lot of people that have maids that come in and clean their house, they work full time, do the cooking and sort of stuff. So as they came in, they need a place to stay, and they can't live in those developed areas, so they go to these hills, and that's where these slums started building up. So they build them on the side of these hills. But because of the way they're located, they become really isolated. Like there'll be 1 or 2 entrances, and then the rest of it, you have 2,000 people, 3,000 people that live on these hills. So what they become, they're a really easy place to defend, and became easy territory to run. So PCC would come in, take over one slum, and it'd be peaceful in there. And then they would run it. They literally run the slums. Like there's nothing. They walk through the streets with full automatic machine guns. They have night vision and sniper rifles and grenades. They've shot down helicopters and stuff like that. Like they're well armed, and they literally run. The police don't go in there. They literally police themselves. They hold their own court. They pass judgment, they have trials, they do all that kind of stuff. They literally run the slums. And so they become isolated. And if you're not from that slum, you do not go in there, because you will be stopped, and if you try to get in, they'll shoot you. They have an app on the phone now that you can, they'll show you the different points in the city where they're having shootouts, so you can avoid them, because they're that constant. When there is some kind of problem that the police have to go in, the police themselves don't go in. They call in, it's called the BOP, B-O-P-E. It's a government police force, but their symbol is a skull with a dagger through it. And they're called in specifically to torture and to kill. They're not called in to keep peace or do any of that sort of stuff. They're called in to torture and to kill. We have a friend of ours, he's a pastor now, he was part of the BOP. And he said they had to go into a slum once, and they grabbed some guy and they were torturing. He said that was it, all the time at that point. And he left. He didn't last very long. But they're specifically called in to do that. And so you get these massive, all-out wars, because the drug dealers are well armed. And it's usually police that have sold it to them.
Corruption at its finest.
Yeah. So this is the situation you get. You have, they're called ahastões. They get about 50, 60 people together on the edge of Copacabana or Ipanema or one of these beaches, and they just run on. They just run and start grabbing everything for anybody that's on the beach. Just take it. Because there's 50 or 60 of them, nobody's going to be able to react. You're not going to be able to fight them because you'll have 10 people on you.
They're smart people.
Yeah. So they just run right through, grab everything, and keep going. And there's nothing they can do. It's 60 people. How are you going to stop 60 people? So they have these ahastões that they organize. They have, they're called piranhas. In Brazil, there's lots of street kids. They get kids as young as 6 years old that live on the street and stuff. And they end up forming groups. And so you get 10, 15 kids together, and they'll find somebody who's walking on the street, and they'll all go and grab a hold of them and just start pulling anything they can pull off. And because you can take kids, but if you have 10 or 15 that grab a hold of you, you can't do anything. And they just grab and pull and just run off. And so this is a situation you get. They're having traffic in Rio is absolutely terrible. So you spend 2 hours to go 20 kilometers or so. So as they're stopped in traffic, motorcycles pass between the two lanes, which makes it, I have a motorcycle, because it makes instead of waiting 2 hours, you have 20 minutes to go that same distance, because you don't have to wait, you don't have to be stopped. But it also provides in Rio that two people on a motorcycle, they'll stop because you're stopped in traffic, somebody will pull out a gun and rob you.
You're in
Or
a,
you're
you're
stuck
stuck in
in
your
there.
car.
You're stuck in your car, you can't go anywhere. And then what they do is now they're having a lot more cases where you just pass all your stuff and they shoot you anyway. Because they're trying to get out to the population a sense of fear of them.
Because fear, that's how you control
Exactly.
people, is through fear.
Exactly.
That's how you got total control.
That somebody will just give you their thing without it reacting or doing any of that sort of stuff. So they're starting to shoot people, you just calmly give it to them and then they'll still shoot you anyway.
It's only 20 cents a bullet in Brazil, if it's even that much, right?
I don't know how much it is, but it's
cheap
not,
over there.
not much.
Sounds like.
Yeah, and so you sit there and you got all this happening, and this is not even, I would say, this is the physical. There's also, I was saying it, and I don't mean to be crude or anything, but this is where, these slums, is where Valley Funk originated. They have these parties on the weekends. Now, funk is the name of a music that they give in Brazil, but I wouldn't even call it music. They really have absolute, like, you know, rap, you have to have a talent. You have to be able to rhyme or something. These people have no talent. They can't sing, they can't rhyme. They just, what it specifically is, they look for the most perverse person, and the more perverse you are, the popular you become. Because they have no talent. It's not looking at talent, it's looking at your perversity. It is, and I'm sorry for being crude, but explicitly pornographic. Not like, you know, you hear rap and stuff, and you know what they're talking about, you know what they're saying, but it's kind of allegorically, like using something to represent. There they don't try to represent, they just tell it explicitly like it is. And they encourage, everyone in the slum listens to this. It is the most disgusting thing I've ever heard. You see kids, 4, 5, 6-year-old listening to this music, and their parents encourage them to do the dirty dance.
No.
And they sit there and clap, and yeah, they encourage their kids to do this. It's absolutely disgusting. And so they form, this is, Rio is where they've originated, and their parties are absolutely disgusting. I know, all I can compare it to is the one that I know in São Paulo. Our slum would have, it's called the Flux. They'd spend a month on a street, then they'd move to another street, then they move, because this party starts on Friday night, goes through until Sunday morning, or Monday. I don't know if it does go through Sunday, so until Sunday morning. They have 10,000 people that come to these parties. And not all of them, and less than half would actually be from the slum. The rest of them come from outside. So you get people that come from the rich parts of town, middle class. They all come to experience what a Valley Funk, which is the slum parties, are like. And they're organized. They bring in everything. They bring in liquor, and they bring every drug you can imagine. They bring women in for prostitution. They bring children in for prostitution. They bring anything you can imagine is okay. It is absolutely terrible. You've never seen anything like it. Never seen anything like it. And so this culture, this idea, has gotten into, they now consider it a culture, a part of Brazilian culture, this thing. And so it's absolutely, there we've asked, we went to visit a girl. She got saved at our Formigas project, and then she went back, and she just bugged and bugged and bugged her mom until she made her mom take her to church, where her mom a couple months later got saved too. I find the best evangelists are children. You get your kids saved, they're going to bug the life out of you until, if they really get saved, they're going to do it. They're going to be the greatest evangelists that you can imagine. So she got saved, and so we'd always do visits, and we'd go and visit and say, oh, we love what you guys are doing. Can you do us a favor though? He said, well, can you talk to the kids one week about sex? Because we're finding kids, 5 and 6, 7, 8-year-old doing sexual stuff down below in the common areas, between themselves. Not an older one abusing a little younger one. It's between themselves. It's gotten into their culture. And so you sit there, and that has created a whole madre of problems. You're trying to deal with kids that have so much trauma that it's very difficult. And some of the kids don't want to hear, normally, kids are kids. But we find a lot of kids that we meet aren't kids. anymore.
They're adults.
They're adults,
That's
and
right.
they act like adults, and you try to, and they resist, like there are kids, every time we do a children's program in other parts, even in other parts of Brazil that we've done, you get 300 kids that will come up to a program. Because it's kids, and it draws them, and they want to have fun. But we found in São Paulo that that's not the way it works anymore,
It's
because
entrenched
most of them
in
don't
the-
want to be associated as a kid.
No, it's
And they
entrenched
won't,
in
exactly, and they
it's
think they're
entrenched.
older, and they look at a children's program, they know that's not for me.
That's my problem growing up, exactly. I was never grew up in Brazil. Everything you said up to the point, I've experienced that here in Canada. But I have lots of prison time with Brazilians, everything you're saying, but just a little bit of new stuff. He explained, that's like a breezeway in a prison. Once you're in those rows of cars, like I say, then the cars are the lanes are very narrow in Brazil, the road, so you ain't gonna get out your door if on his comrades in that car, everything's timed to program, same as when you go to Hong Kong. Everything is not as a perceived, everything is on a stopwatch or now cell phone or
Very
satellite watches. And you might meet someone in Brazil, you might meet a kid sell you a basket for maybe $5 American, and it's worth 5 times that.
Yeah.
But guess what? He puts one of his buddies, because I'll swarm your card, there's tracking devices that big, stick it up on
Yeah,
you,
I've heard that,
pinpoint
so,
in the area
yeah.
that might be directed to Sao Paulo. Guess what? You may not have nothing. Obviously, if you're in Brazil, you don't have to necessarily, but you gotta have money because you have to pay all these interpreters. Because if you go to the slum, like you say, as a white man down there with $1 million in the bank, guess what? They might let you out, but as soon as they got your PIN number or your offshore account, you're finished, buddy. I know there's just stuff like that going on in Canada, but I've been to Montego Bay. I had a chance to go to Vietnam, but it fell through due to ID. And guess what? This world is nothing as it is perceived.
You look
It's
at Brazil,
propaganda, basically, what it
and you look
amounts
at all these countries, I've really come to the conclusion that there's not much difference between Brazil and Canada. It's just Brazil is an exaggeration.
That's
It
right.
takes what happens here, but it just exaggerates.
That's right.
It's over the top. And because I've heard now in Halifax they're having a big problem with human trafficking, sex trafficking.
All of us.
All that kind of stuff. Well, you have these things, it happens. All the things that happen in Brazil will happen here, just probably on a smaller scale, not so exaggerated. It just becomes really obvious in Brazil. It's just so over the top.
It's not
So
fair.
over the top that you sit there and you think, you become shocked.
Sex is
It's
not
a-
a scary topic. Most people, especially some of the elderly, they don't want to get into it because there's different times and different practices back, say 50s and now, but they're so far-fetched. It's
become into our cultures as well. This is what we need to fight because
Yeah,
it
that's right.
becomes something, the younger it's introduced, the
Yeah.
less prepared a person is for it. And so
becomes
kids are
embedded
getting it.
in their
And
thought.
now we're trying to get them out of it. And it seems like we shouldn't even be dealing with this yet,
No.
but we're starting to have to. And so we find that this is the culture that we're living in. And this is what, and Rio is just an exaggeration in Brazil. So these are the things that we're facing as we're thinking of moving to Brazil, as we're moving to Brazil. So we'd ask you please to keep us in prayers. One of the things that Jew really needs, and I need it too, is a safe place to bring up Oscar. Because we want to find a place that's decent, that we don't have to sit there and, be careful when we drive to our house. We got to look both ways, make sure nobody's waiting at the corner of the house, and that sort of stuff. We need to have a safe place, and a place where we can go and rest. One of the things we found in the slum that we were living in is that these places are very spiritual. They're not, like, I know Canada, I know we all believe in spirits and all that kind of stuff, but it's a different thing when you can feel it palpably, feel it in the air. It's something, Jew would always say, your mood changes around Thursday. And I've never had difficulties with depression or mood swings or anything like that, but since I went and lived in the slum, I have had difficulties with it. Because at the end of it, I really believe in demonic strongholds now. I can tell you, absolutely, by experience, they are real. They are very real. And there are places that are more spiritually dark than others. And there are harder places to enter into because the darkness has taken a hold of it. Just the name of the slum that we live, I don't know if you knew it, Heliopolis, is in the Bible. And it's not a Portuguese word. We have no idea where it came from. And if you knew, when the Israelites left, when Jacob left, and he brought his family down to Egypt, you know where they settled?
Yeah.
Heliopolis. And it's where their slavery started, was in that place. And it seems like, but there's no reason why that should be named that way. I talked to a guy, an older man there. He's in his 60s. He was there 70s now. He was there when it was first founded. And he said, Heliopolis is founded on murder and macumba, which it's when the slaver ships came over from Africa, came to Brazil, and then they head up to the Americas. That's where they stopped, and this is where the religion that they brought over, which is, the whole religion is based on demon possession. So they have these rituals where they get in a circle and they do these chants and they do these rituals and the person becomes possessed. And they have videos of it on TV. It's absolutely, it's crazy. It's them saying stuff, doing stuff, and all this kind of stuff. And so Heliopolis was founded on these two things. And I believe it has become a spiritual stronghold. And so I do believe these things now. And though I'm Christian, I always believed it. It's different it's difference between knowing and understanding, if you get my difference. You can know something, but then when you're actually there and you experience it, you get an understanding of it. It's different. And so these places are strong, demonic strongholds. It's where they can get away with these things that you think is ridiculous. It shouldn't go on. But when they become that embedded, you have a difficulty. But I still believe, I think I used it last time I was here. If I had a candle, and I lit that candle right now, would that candle make a difference? No, because there's lots of light here. But if I took that same little candle, turned off all the lights at midnight tonight, and lit that candle, would it make a difference? It would make a much bigger difference. Because the deeper the darkness, the greater difference even a pinpoint of light makes. And that's what I believe the gospel is in these places. Yeah, it looks, the darkness is deep. But if you can come in the church, because these places are difficult, there are very few people that do anything. It's easy. It's easy to be a Christian. It's easy to shine your light when you're among a bunch of other Christians. But it's difficult. It will always be difficult if this light, if you or me, we go out into the middle of some kind of darkness, whether it's here in St. John or anywhere that it may be, and you go into the middle and you try to shine, you try to do something for Christ, there will always come opposition. And it's easier. If we were all in church today and we're singing a worship hymn, everybody's standing up singing a worship song, and everybody sits down, but the one person that didn't see everybody sit down, and they go to the next song and keep singing. He looks around and sees everybody sitting down. What does he want to do? Sit down. And so even the people sitting down are feeling embarrassed for that person because they're standing up. And they kind of say, just sit down, so I don't feel uncomfortable. Do you know what? That's what it is when somebody stands up to do something for Christ. Somebody stands up to do something for Christ. They look around and see nobody doing it, but they still do it. The people that are sitting down, the Christians sitting down, look and see it. And it's easier to try to pressure that person to sit back down so I feel comfortable than for me to stand up. You get what I'm saying? And that is certainly the truth. And I've seen it. And so, but I've also seen when one point of light, and just one little light stands up and shines, it makes a difference. We have seen children saved by the gospel. We have seen parents saved. We have seen groups of kids that have come to our program, never come to church, never come once to our church or anything like that, and then talk to them later, oh, I'm going to the church down the road there. My whole family's going now. And you see them it just seems like it's just 1 hour on a Saturday. What difference does 1 hour make? It's a little pinpoint of light in the midst of the darkness, and there are people that are dying for the light. They just need to see it. And if they can see it, they'll be drawn to it. And being drawn to it, they meet our Jesus. And it changes. I've seen it. And if we would just do that, it doesn't matter in what position, what place you've been put. Shine in the midst of the darkness, because God will save people. We've had a little girl, she said once, she came up to one of the teachers. She came up to the teacher and said, talking about family. And she asked him about her family. She said, I have 7 moms and a dad. And then this lady came to me after, Isabella there. She said she has 7 moms and a dad. And the first thing that came into mind, this kid is living in a prostitution, a brothel. That's what it is. Or he's a pimp and he's got a bunch of... that's the first thing, and I'm telling you truthfully, that's the first thing that came into my mind. Because it becomes a normal sort of thing. But then, the lady, she said, no. She started listing off the names of each of the workers at the project. There were 7 girls, and there was me. And so she had 7 moms and 1 dad. And you think, 1 hour a week, and this child lives 24/7, in one day 23. In the midst of all this darkness, but that 1 hour becomes a point of light, a point of hope. And I believe it. If we would just stand up and do something, it doesn't matter what we do. There's a verse, if you guys remember, it says in when Moses and Aaron, the people rose up at Cothan, Dathan, and Abram, they rose up against the leadership of Moses, saying, God didn't only speak through you, but I spoke through us as well. And when they did that, well, then you bring incense and we'll offer it, and we'll see who God has chosen. And then the earth opened up and swallowed them whole and their families and closed over them. And then the people ran screaming, saying of Moses and Aaron, that God chose them and all that kind of stuff. You know what it says right after that? The very next day, the people grumbled against Moses and Aaron, saying, you killed the men of God. And God broke out a plague. The plague broke out and started dropping. If I was Moses and Aaron, I'd say, yep, that's what you get. I'd say, I've had enough. But Moses and Aaron did not have that reaction. They saw men and women dropping over dead. And Moses looked at Aaron and said, quickly run to the altar and make an offering. And it says that Aaron ran quickly to the tabernacle, and he grabbed fire and incense from the altar. And he ran in the midst of the assembly, where the people were dying left and right. And he said he stood in their middle and made his offering between the living and the dead. And it was there they made that offering that the plague was stopped. I loved it because it says that Moses ran first to the altar. He ran first to the church and grabbed what was in it. But he didn't stay there. He ran out into their midst where the death and the plague was happening. See, if we want to see the plague stopped, I believe in the power of the church. But it's not in a place. It's us. We are the church. And Christ is in us. And who needs the light and who needs the Christ is who's dying. And yes, there's every odd time you get somebody that God brings to the church. But most of the people that are dying aren't going to be coming here. They're going to be staying out there. And we need to go to them. And it says it took fire and incense. I love this. Fire and incense. And he made that offering. The offering for forgiveness of sins, you guys know what it was? Is it fire and incense? No. That's not the right offering. The right offering to forgive sin is taking a year-old lamb, cut its throat, take the blood, sprinkle it on the 4 corners of the altar, burn up the lamb on it, and in that process, sin is forgiven. Aaron didn't even offer the right sacrifice. He went into the middle and he just took what he had. He took what he had and went in the middle of it. And you know what? I always believe that it doesn't matter what we offer to God. We don't always try to figure out the best strategies, figure out the best way to reach people, best things to do. But you know what? It really doesn't matter what we do. If you go outside and just jump up and down screaming Jesus loves you, I bet you, everybody's going to think you're crazy. Absolutely. But I believe, and I can tell you honestly, I firmly believe somebody is going to be touched by that. And somebody, for someone, that plague will stop. And they're going to save them. Because the truth is, God's just waiting for us to do something. Because when we do something, God also does. It says he went with fire and incense. You know what fire and incense represent? You know what it is? You know what fire represents in the Bible? Holy Spirit. You know what incense represents? Prayer. Aaron went with, all he took with him was the Holy Spirit and prayer. And he ran into the midst, and he did what he could do. And there, it says, he stood in their middle. On one side was the dead, and on the other side was the living. We can be that Moses. We can stand between the living and the dead. And it doesn't matter what we do, if we do it, God also does. I believe it. And so I would encourage you, in whatever station of life you are, you can also stand in some gap. You can also do something. And if you do it because you want to see people saved, God's going to save people through you. The only reason why we see people dying and going to hell is because we, people, God's people, decide to do nothing. And if we just do it, God also does. And we've seen it in Brazil, and I'm sure you guys have seen it here. Because God's the same everywhere. He's not different in Brazil. He doesn't act differently in different places. He acts the same as long as we would act in faith. And we take that step out of the boat, real faith, and we take whatever we got, just prayer and the Holy Spirit is enough, and go and do something. So that people might know Christ, see that point of light, see something different, and they might run to it and be saved by it. God is good, and God wants to save, and He will save if we would just do something. Amen? Let's pray. Dear Jesus, we come before you, good and holy God. There is no one like you. You are great, and you are mighty, and you are powerful. God, there is plague that's sweeping through every nation on this earth. Every city, every family. It's in there. Maybe we can't see it. Open our eyes that we might see it, God. And that we might know and understand that, God, we can do something. We may not be greatly talented. We may not even know what to do. But Lord Jesus, if your Spirit is in us, if we can just pray, we can say a prayer, it's enough. Help us, God, to go into the midst of the dying, to stand between the living and the dead, to offer up whatever it is we have to offer. So that, God, men and women, children, teenagers, older people, that they might know the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ, that they may know of your gracious gift, your great kindness, your unending mercy, and your complete forgiveness. God, may we be a light in the midst of the darkness. Doesn't matter how deep the darkness is. God, the darkness can't fight against light. It doesn't win against light. The only time darkness wins is when light is not present. God, may we go out into the midst of the darkness in our lives, whether it be in our families or our work, school, or in our neighborhood, or wherever it may be. Help us to shine, God. Because this all, our whole life, is all summed up in your glory, in your honor, in the lifting up of your name. God, may we live our lives in such a way that men and women might see you, might be drawn to you. Lord, you are good, and you are good to us. May we be faithful to your calling. May we be obedient, that all men may see your glory. And may we meet you one day, and may we hear those words, well done, good and faithful servant. Help us, God, to strive for that, to work towards that, and to give our lives for it. In the name of Jesus Christ, we ask these things. Amen.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank
Sorry I was late.
Does anyone know about your next
Well, I'm technologically impaired.